Okay. Sorry if I seem a little distracted, folks. I'm just, yeah, reflecting for a bit, but I'll elaborate more on that at the end of the video. Now, we got ourselves a bonus review here. When I started this marathon, I wasn't sure whether or not I should even bother including these two games. The Acid series was those kind of games like Ghost Babel and Portable Ops that I always saw sitting in the GameStop back then, but I never bothered buying them because when I read the back of this case, I saw that they were not styled in the standard Metal Gear fashion, but rather a turn-based tactical role-playing formula using a card system. That idea of the card system sort of turned me away. I was just off the heels of Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories at the time, and I was pretty bitter about that, so for the time I looked the other way. But these two slowly crept back into my mind the moment I started getting this marathon into high gear, so I figured I'd leave it up to you guys to decide whether or not I should include them. Well, you guys spoke up before, so here I am. Metal Gear role-playing games, two of them at that. We got Shinta Nojiri returning from Ghost Babel as the director, with Kojima settling in as the producer. And like Ghost Babel, the Acid games are in their own continuity, where the Solid series never happened. I'm not even sure if the original Metal Gear games happened or not. The only thing that matters here is that Snake is regarded as a legendary mercenary, but how he achieved that status is never really elaborated on. So let's get a move on, because I got things to talk about. Really, I don't even know why I bothered with the spoiler bumper, because I'm still having trouble trying to grasp what's going on in this story. Just after starting a new file, we witness a female soldier named Taliko doing a shitload of things at once as she wipes out a faction of soldiers belonging to a mercenary named Leon. Now, I don't know if this was supposed to break us into the card game formula, but this shit moves way too fucking fast to absorb anything, and it ended up just leaving me confused and somewhat intimidated. A jumbo jet carrying a number of passengers, including a small girl named Manette and Senator/future presidential candidate Vigo Hawk, is hijacked by terrorists, two dolls. I feel like I'm watching one of those cheesy episodes of the Batman animated series. In exchange for the senator's safety, they demand something called Pythagoras, something being worked on in a research laboratory in the Maloney Republic, located in southern Africa. The Maloney government refuses to cooperate with the United States, leaving them to rely on a covert special forces team to quietly sneak into the area, and they immediately get massacred by armed resistance. So for round 2, they pull Solid Snake from a long retirement to sneak into the laboratory to get information on the terrorists, discover what Pythagoras is, and save the innocents on the plane. Joining Snake is Roger McCoy, this game's Colonel Campbell with half of the personality or relation to Snake, and Alice Hazel, a 16-year-old girl with psychic powers. The main target is one Dr. Fleming, the head researcher of the Pythagoras project, but as Snake gets deeper into the facility, he comes across a guy named Gary Murray. He points Snake to Fleming's location, but it turns out to be a trap. Waiting for Snake is Leon, the man in charge of the mercenaries running throughout the area, but Snake is saved at the last minute by Taliko Friedman, the lone survivor of the US Special Forces team that was wiped out earlier. Agreeing to team up for the remainder of the mission, Snake and Taliko continue to search for Fleming, but now things get bizarre. Snake is able to bypass security in one of the buildings when one of the checkpoints identifies Snake as Hans Davis, Dr. Fleming's supervisor on various projects they worked on together. Snake also begins to have sudden headaches and flashbacks to events he doesn't remember. Gary Murray eventually shows up again and drops Snake a couple of bombshells. Pythagoras is the code name for a new Metal Gear being developed, which is glossed over rather quickly when he drops the other two bombs. Murray reveals that he's actually Dr. Fleming and that the true identity of Snake is really Hans Davis, his partner in research, and that Solid Snake is just an alternate personality used to lock that memory away. And this is where I begin to lose focus, because now Metal Gear Acid decides to twist things into a Metal Gear pretzel. Dr. Fleming worked for a company named Beagle. He made a bunch of biological weapons for them, two of them being called number 16 and number 104, who were human weapons, but they supposedly died off. Beagle began treating Fleming like shit, so he went rogue. His daughter is being held captive on the hijacked plane. He says that number 16, his creation, is responsible for the hijack, and they have a personal grudge against him and Snake. He wants to use Metal Gear to take them on. Snake begins to fight his inner demons. Taliko turns out to be a hired killer of Bigo named La Clown, who can fuck with people's heads and was sent to extract Pythagoras from Fleming and take out both him and Snake when she was finished. Fleming's daughter disarms the bomb inside the jumbo jet with the help of Alice. Alice is revealed to be number 16, the one behind everything. Fleming's daughter is revealed to be number 104, the one really behind everything. Snake plays some Mario Party. It turns out Snake is not actually Hans Davis, but just Snake. The Hans Davis stuff was just some shit La Clown put into his head. He meets up with the real Taliko Freeman after killing the fake Taliko Freeman. There's a long battle with Metal Gear. I think the plane safely lands, and this guy right here turns out to be the real Hans Davis. Mother of Christ, this story is all over the place. It's like, let's take the formula of Metal Gear and just add a fuckload of psychological twists and turns and shocks and swerves. This was fucking impossible to keep up with, because it feels like this story has no focus. I was following until Snake began fighting with his Hans Davis personality, because at this time we're told of Pythagoras, its original intentions, Fleming's creations. We frequently switch back to the hijack plane to see how the senator is doing, and later Fleming's daughter as she disables the bomb, but it's all redundant and disrupts plots A through Y. I stopped caring, and that's it. I stopped caring. And keep in mind, I enjoyed Sons of Liberty. You know, I'm thinking this was done to intentionally shake up the foundation, but what the fuck is the bigger picture here? What should I be worrying about more? The Metal Gear Pythagoras, the Dr. Fleming's intentions, the inner struggle of Snake, Leon, LeClown, the Senator, the fact that I don't know who the main villain is here? There's so many loose threads, and if by the ending they're supposed to knit nicely together, I do not see it. What I see is a story that feels it's trying to be different for the sake of being different, without considering all the characters in play. No one feels really developed here. We have motivations, but we don't really know who these people are. I don't feel the stakes. I know there's a plane being hijacked, but we never flesh out the people inside the plane. I know next to nothing about this version of Snake. It's only because of my previous history with the guy in other Metal Gear titles that I find any of the Hans Davis side plot interesting in any sense. And Taliko Friedman, man, you want to talk about someone without a fulfilling character arc? So she looks up to Snake, right? And she became a great soldier to avenge her father, who was killed by a corrupt businessman. Didn't really need that part. It worked for Meryl in Metal Gear Solid, but hey, it just so happens that her father's murderer ends up being LeClown, the one impersonating Taliko early on. So yay, we get some closure by means of complete fucking coincidence. The obvious joke is that this game is on acid, but I don't think it's trippy, just lost, and it ends abruptly too. There's no ending to this game. I'm confused, unfulfilled, and quite frankly bored. Part of the blame has to go to the presentation. Character portraits with loads of dialogue and static 3D models are what you're staring at for nearly the whole adventure. These are nicely drawn portraits, but they don't emote or animate in any fashion. We are graced with these pleasantly drawn stills from time to time, but they're reused a lot at different times of the story and don't compare to the stylized animation pieces of Portable Ops. There's no dynamic cutscenes of any kind, no voice acting either. I mean, with an RPG, it'd be unrealistic to expect that sort of thing all the time, but it doesn't even feel like there was an attempt. It feels very budgeted, even for a handheld Metal Gear side story. If the story wasn't bad enough, we also have Acid's gameplay. Now, I just want to say, before saying anything else, I'm not a fan of this type of game, you know, the tactical role-playing game. Admittedly, I'm heading into this with a bit of a natural bias, but I still want to look at it because you never know. This could be the one that finally changes my mind. Acid's style of gameplay can be summed up as traditional 3D Metal Gear action with a shitload of steps added in between each core mechanic, the shitload of steps being the card system. Everything is dictated by cards, sneaking around patrolmen, using weapons, and moving across the board. You construct a deck of 30 cards, and it gets bigger as you progress through the game. And with those, you complete the mission given to you and head to the next stage. Cards come in all flavors. They can be a large assortment of guns you can shoot enemies with immediately, or equip so that you can use them when you equip another one of its kind to them. There's a surplus of character cards that can help even the playing field or boost your stats for one turn. Healing items, status buffs, it's all here, and you have to use their effects wisely when the situation calls for it. But you also have to be aware of the cost. Certain cards have higher costs, and when your turn is over, the player with the lowest cost count goes up next, so you have to think ahead. You get extra cards by either buying them in the shop with points you earn at the end of a mission, or by picking them up when you find them across different stages. Whoa, wait a minute. I can't pick up cards just by running through them? I have to stop directly on top of the card stack to pick them up. That feels clunky. And you know what else is clunky? Not being able to turn your character without wasting a turn or card. Enemies move just as much as your characters do, but you can't retaliate immediately all the time unless you have a proper counter card. So that means if you want to accurately face your enemy to attack them, you have to waste 2 turns using a card to face them, and then use the card you really want to use to strike them. It's not something like Fire Emblem where battles are loaded separately, making the direction you face irrelevant. Battles are real time, and you gotta take them out with your battle cards. That's even if you have that proper card in your hand currently, because like many games involving cards or decks, that's luck based. Now, being fair here, Acid encourages stealth. If you stay out of sight, then worrying about what cards you have in your hand should be no problem, since nearly all of them can be used to simply move across the board. It's those sequences where fights are mandatory and where certain cards are required to progress are infuriating to the fucking moon! You remember moments like in Metal Gear Solid where you had to use the Nikita missile to destroy the electrical circuit board to disable the electrified floor? You grab the Nikita missile, you aim, you fire, boom, there you go, on to the next part. Shit like that returns here, but now you have to use cards to do all that. You gotta use cards to deal with the enemy opposition, because there's no way in hell you're controlling a Nikita missile while 3 guards are on your ass. And most importantly, you have to make sure the Nikita missile card is even in your hand. You want to know what you do when you don't have the required card for a certain part of the mission in your hand. You repeatedly discard 2 cards from your hand, you end your turn, you wait for your turn to come up again, you draw 2 more cards, and hope to God you drew the card you needed. This is repeated for multiple instances, praying that you draw the sniper rifle cards to deal with these UAV ciphers, praying that you draw the card key card to get through these security doors, and in that case, praying that you draw the level 2 key instead of the level 1 key. The only way to mitigate this issue is by having multiple copies of those kind of cards. missions. This requires grinding. You revisit previously played missions and rack up those card pickups, or use those points to buy card packs and hope to God you pull the card you need from those packs. If not, you're save scumming, quitting the game and reloading the file until you get what you need. Tiresome shit just to make this shit less tiresome. But here's the real kicker. This game is sluggish no matter how you cut it. I could have dealt with some of this shit if mission objectives didn't last very long, and that was the impression I got for like the first 3 to 4 hours. Missions rarely went over 30 minutes, so I figured, well, okay, if that's the worst I gotta deal with, then I don't mind having to go back to get the points I need for better cards. And then the missions just kept getting longer and longer. Some going on as long as an hour and a half, damn near 2, with no checkpoints. You fuck up 2 hours into a mission because of a bad hand or some other circumstance, like cramp level design, you're doing it all over again, and that's just fucking wrong and counterintuitive to handle design. Even with great cards and combinations, just moving around these areas are tiring to my hands because, again, even movement is determined by cards, and you only move a select number of spaces at once. Doors impede your movement and force you to waste extra cards just to go through them, and cutscenes can suddenly pop up and prematurely end your turn. What a load of fucking shit! You use a card to move a few spaces, you stop, you use another card to move, you stop, end your turn, watch your enemies move, hoping they don't notice you. If they do, your mission just got a whole lot longer. Your turn comes back, you move, you stop, you move, you stop, you move, you stop. It's like a bastardization of a gameplay style I'm so used to playing in a specific way. Just the idea of using cards to maneuver Snake like I could do in any other Metal Gear game. When I see the hero trade gunshots with enemy soldiers, and they look like utter dopes when they're just taking bullets like that, all of this just feels broken to me. I can't get into it, I don't want to get into it, because I have countless other Metal Gear games I'd rather play. I won't go out and say that Metal Gear Acid is a bad game, just not one I enjoy. My dislike for this title comes largely from it being a style of game I didn't enjoy in the first place, which isn't the game's fault. The story though, I don't need to know how to play tactical games to know that it confused and bored the shit out of me. I know there's a target audience for it, but I'm not part of that crowd, so the best I can say is give it a shot, and maybe you'll like it. It goes without saying this didn't give me much hope for Metal Gear Acid 2, but I do find this the better game. Firstly, its story is way more comprehensible. Oh wait, I guess I should do this first, huh? This is an extremely rare sight, Solid Snake just relaxing with friends. I think they're friends given the friendly banter, but this is kinda nice. Don't know what happened to Roger McCoy or Toliko Friedman from last time, but I guess the storytellers don't care either. So Snake and company are seen flying into the United States illegally after some off-screen shenanigans when they're suddenly greeted by FBI agent Dalton upon landing. He's actually an ex-FBI agent, but Snake doesn't know that and Dalton takes full advantage. He makes Snake a proposal. He won't report him or his friends to the authorities if he agrees to help him with his investigation given Snake's reputation. Snake agrees and the two head to a research facility belonging to Saint Logic, a military weapons manufacturer that Dalton believes is experimenting on children to use them as weapons. But not long after the mission starts, control of the operation is taken by General Wiseman, the Army Chief of Staff and the most obviously evil man you'll ever see in the Metal Gear series. He's been sent in response to a direct threat made by Saint Logic executive Thomas Copplethorne. The crazed researcher is threatening to use nuclear weapons against the United States if his demands aren't met, which include a release of several prisoners that are never really elaborated on, and something called the Lucinda File. Though they don't have much of a choice to start with, Snake and Dalton agree to help General Wiseman in exchange for Dalton not getting his illegal investigation reported, and Snake learning details about his forgotten past. I forgot to mention that little tidbit. Snake is suffering from amnesia in Acid 2. He doesn't recall anything prior to this game, but knows that he's a capable mercenary and willing to help out if it means finding out who he is. Accompanying Snake is Venus, a soldier working for Wiseman and sporting a very large cranium. Look at that noggin, her head is like 90% skull. So these two stick together and infiltrate the laboratory, and considering the small size of the entire facility, they start getting results quickly. They come across a young girl named Lucy who doesn't say much of anything, and a researcher named Takayama, and I won't write around this one, her cleavage is massive, and they shamelessly bounce all over the place, making you think you're playing a Dead or Alive game. Dr. Takayama was an assistant of Copplethorne, and though a bit reluctant, she agrees to help for the sake of her personal safety. Snake and Venus face heavy opposition as they work together, including bioengineered weapons of Saint Logic, and probably the coolest dude in the whole game, Vince. This guy isn't a biological weapon, just a man with a cool helmet and dominating presence. He doesn't have much bearing on the overall story, but he's such a respectable father figure to his men. He looks cool as hell and throws explosive barrels at you. It's too bad we have to kill this man to get through, but he doesn't offer resistance when he realizes he's been beaten, and orders his men to evacuate the area before Snake and Venus locate Copplethorne. Now, Copplethorne wants revenge against the United States and Snake personally for killing his wife Lucinda in an incident 3 years prior to this. In perhaps the game's biggest twist, this Snake is revealed to be a clone of Solid Snake from the first Acid game. According to this Solid Snake died sometime off screen and his body was recovered to make this clone. What in the ever-living hell? So this Snake was developed by Saint Logic to help keep the other human experiments in check. Well, that didn't work out so well. Snake lost his memory, doesn't remember the things he did prior, and wants nothing to do with Saint Logic anymore. Copplethorne's goal is to use a new version version of Metal Gear he's been developing to enact his revengeance, and Lucy, the small girl by Takayama's side, is actually a human-turned operating system developed by Copplethorne to unleash the true potential of the new Metal Gear. Lucy's personality was constructed from the remnants of Copplethorne's wife Lucinda so that the two can live happily ever after. But like all AI in fictional media, it goes rogue, it kills Copplethorne, and takes the Metal Gear for itself, becoming one with it. The new Metal Gear is destroyed in no time thanks to the efforts of Snake and Venus, but Wiseman orders Venus to kill Snake and grab the Lucinda file from Takayama so that Wiseman can hide the fact that he was responsible for Snake's memory loss to use him as a scapegoat for later on. He was also the true murderer of Copplethorne's wife 3 years ago. Okay, look, we get it, guys. He's evil. I mean, really, the face tells everything. But this is Snake we're talking about here, and he won't go quietly into the night. He neutralizes Venus, and the two split up as the entire facility begins to self-destruct. Venus escapes with Takayama in a jeep, and Snake, in a sequence I couldn't make up if I tried, uses the railgun of the defunct Metal Gear to launch himself away from the base before it goes under. Holy shit, that's fucking awesome. I mean, he breaks every bone in his body, but being a clone of a legendary mercenary that was no doubt enhanced in some fashion, he heals up pretty quickly. Dalton, making good on his word, reunites Snake with his buddies, Venus and Takayama go their separate ways, and General Wiseman is arrested for his illegal activities from 3 years ago. All's well that ends well. This plot is bug nuts, but I can actually understand what's going on here. It almost comes off like a spoof of the standard Metal Gear story. Just look how colorful the new Metal Gear model is. Come on, that shit is a toy from a Happy Meal, not a weapon of mass destruction. One character I didn't mention through the synopsis was a computer hacker named BB. He or she serves to exposit the evil deeds that Wiseman and Saint Logic performed in years prior to this game, but most importantly, this person's the reason why Wiseman gets incarcerated by the President of the United States at the end of the game. And then BB is revealed to be a kid from elementary school. A grade school kid gets the Army Chief of Staff arrested. That about sums up Acid 2 nicely, you know? If Snake launching himself out of the Metal Gear's cannon to escape the facility wasn't indicative enough. It's all ridiculous, but in a fun sort of ridiculous. Certainly not Metal Gear levels of complexity, but I'd rather it be this than what Acid 1 was trying to accomplish. Acid 2 is no better in presentation than previously. In fact, I would say it's a little worse. This game only came out a year after the first Acid, but we still got the emotionless character portraits, all the dialogue accompanying it to drag them out, even less drawn stills to tell the story. Again, you're mostly staring at static models, but you know what? I dig the cel-shaded look. It gives it a unique visual identity, and the soundtrack is damn good. I look forward to getting seen by the enemies because that means it's fucking party time. Gameplay isn't much different from before. The cards still rule over all living creatures, but there are enough differences that make Acid 2 the better game in my eyes. Movement is still grid-based, but you can move your character as you plan your route and pick up items as you run past them, so you don't need to stop directly on top of them just to collect it. Doors also don't impede your movement anymore. If that door can open, then the fucking thing will actually open when you approach it and allow you to keep going. You can sell your unused cards for points to buy packs and hopefully get the ones you really want. You still have to save some if you don't get what you're looking for, but whatever cards you already own can now be upgraded to have better performance. Encounters are faster, the entire game is faster. I clocked in 20 hours in the first Acid game. Acid 2 was around 12. A major difference is the substantial cut down on sequences where certain cards are needed to continue. I only counted one, and that was when a sniper rifle was needed to shoot down UAV ciphers. It's almost a complete retread of that same mission on Acid 1. You don't need Nikita missiles for disabling things, there's no card keys required for anything. Acid 2 trims a lot of fat and it's better for it. I'm sure another factor to the shorter runtime was the fact that I was already used to the gameplay style thanks to Acid 1, but I would still say Acid 2 is more beginner friendly. You got tutorials, different difficulties, and it's easier to sneak around enemies to avoid confrontations because of broader level design. I still wouldn't revisit this given my dislike of the turn-based tactical strategy real-time card-based Metal Gear thing. I can at least say that Acid 2 has a better chance of offering you something you can enjoy, and I'm glad I was able to experience this after Acid 1 to appreciate the changes more. I'm not sure if these two are available on the PlayStation TV service, but the PlayStation Portable is always an option, if anything, so you can experience the other RPGs in the damn thing. And I can't end this video without at least mentioning this as well. Acid 2 came with this Solid Eye 3D viewer. You can watch trailers and other videos in stereoscopic 3D, essentially what the 3DS does already without the need for this piece of cardboard. It's a little awkward. I feel like I'm studying microorganisms rather than watching compressed videos in substandard 3D, and I sort of feel like a creeper when I watch the videos where I do nothing but stare at this girl doing random things. Still an interesting thing to come packaged with the game, assuming you didn't buy it used. This kind of looks like the head of a cute robot. You know what, let me just... And then... Booyah! Solid Eye, robot. Okay, so this is where I go a little off script here. And I just want to say I'm sorry for that delay, guys. A lot has happened since the Revengeance video and the LEGO Avengers review podcasts. And those who follow me on social media know exactly what I'm talking about. I'm moving. Yeah, I'm getting a new place. This review is the last I guess, full video I'm making in this place I've spent nearly 8 years of my life making videos in. I got a lot of memories here. I'm gonna make a special tribute video for it. But make no mistake, I'm working on the Peace Walker video now. So I know you guys won't wait nearly 3 weeks for that video. No excuses. So I guess I'll see you guys over at my new place with Metal Gear Solid Peace Walker, the PlayStation 3 version. I'm not gonna bother with the PlayStation Portable. Kind of done with that handle for the time being after the Acid series. But with all that said, thank you guys for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic night, and take care.